Another quick video here on the maths evaluator and new data types. So in the maths evaluator, we've been able to type numbers in that will come out. If I put an L or lowercase l there, it turns in, it's interpreted as a long, and it creates a very high precision 64 byte integer. And 64 these longs, which are in the breadboard just called integers, can mathematical operations can, for the most part, work on them. They don't always work when mixing types, so I would recommend you keep all your maths to integer maths if you're doing integers, if you need them for some reason. So one of the reasons this has been added is because things like the IDs of forces and things are integer types, and treating them as floats has not yielded the precision necessary to actually control docking stations and things. The other change is that the floating point numbers are now double precision, so they have a lot of precision built into them. In the printer, we actually have the ability now to do see how this works. There, to control the format type. I'm just remembering how to actually do this. Let's take a simpler number. 123.456. Now, there we go. Something like hash 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 or dot 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 should do it. Yeah, so we can use C# programming language formatting strings to change how these are written. So, and we can have multiple things being printed as well now. So if I do that, there we go. Constants can now be declared as different types, so we can create vector constants and quaternion constants, and string constants have been around for a while, but we can also create integer constants too. So that's new. So the constant thing has changed. Orientation input has had these added extras added to it. The rotation input already provided all of them, so that was a bit of a mistake on my part. But just to let you know that that's there. Time now contains frame number, which is actually an integer, like a double or a long precision 64-bit byte, 64-bit integer. Flagship info now outputs the position of the flagship. Don't think it did before. I think that's new. Multiply has now got more abilities to multiply different data types together. And switch has got the ability to pass different data types. So for example, if I put an integer into the first input and I get an integer out, and if I put 0 there to close the switch, open the switch, basically it will still pass out an integer. If I put a vector in, I'm going to get a null vector out, or 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 vector out. And if we change from a vector to a quaternion, it will put the quaternion through. These quaternions are displayed on the UI as with their Euler angles of pitch, yaw, and roll, but they are actually quaternions, not vectors of Euler angles. Other things that have changed. Let me see. Clamp can now clamp different types of thing. So put a clamp of a vector in and set the clamp to 5 to 5, and we'll get something with a magnitude of 5. Well, that's a quaternion. Let's try a vector. So it limits the elements of the vector to have values of 5, no greater than minus 5 to 5. We now basically acknowledge integers as their own types. We don't use floating point numbers anymore. We use double precision numbers. Or the differencer component, I think, can take differences between vectors now. So if I put in their position, and then yeah, so my delta position is, there we go, we just saw it, a delta in the y-axis of our position. And we now acknowledge that there's two coordinate frames in the game, universal chords where 0, 0, 0 is the center of the map, and it gets to very high numbers as we leave the center of the map, and standard chords, which is like basically the Unity game world position of our objects.